we are currently posting and hiring for.
Do I have a motion to approve this resolution?
Yes, on the classified layoff, resolution number 2015/16 up to 31. And that's the motion before me.
Okay, do I have a second?
A second.
Okay, so there's a motion on the floor and a second to approve resolution number 2015/16-34. Roll call, please.
President Stephen Kim,
Aye.
Vice President Roberto Garcia,
Yes.
Clerk Foster Hoffman,
Yes.
Trustee Francisco Estrada,
Yes.
and Trustee Amy Ish.
Yes.
Okay. 5-0, motion passes. Okay, B2.
So the next item, action item B2 is down for your consideration, a vehicle rider job description. So this past spring, Monterey County Office of Ed informed us and other districts that they are no longer providing bus riders to our special ed students. So we have 12 students that will require a vehicle rider attendant. So I collaborated with CSCA on the development of this job description. We have students who have medical and behavioral needs who will require a bus rider. So we're asking that you consider approval of this job description because in the very near future we will be having to hire vehicle riders for 12 of our students come August. Any questions?
I have a question.
Yes.
On the duties and responsibilities, this is the bus driver?
Correct.
The vehicle driver. The fourth bullet says, may need to move about when the bus is moving. That sounds pretty scary. What's the deal?
Well, we have students that have various needs, ranging from behavioral and medical needs. So if a student, for example, there may be some students that are prone to seizures. So if that student is indeed in need of attention at that moment, the vehicle rider attendant would have to get up and attend to the student, maybe administer medication. There's just different situations. So that would be an example of something that would fit under that description.
Now, one more question. It also states on the bus, on the job description that communicate in English both orally and in writing. But then you also have communicate in English and the language of the student under their charge. Given the fact that we have so many English language learners, and a lot of these kids are going to be carted around in these buses, I would assume you're going to have bilingual personnel.
That's a desirable quality. It's not a minimum qualification, but when we're referencing being able to communicate in English both orally and in writing, there may be times that information has to be given and taken back and forth between the family and the teacher related to the condition of the child. It can be medically, behaviorally. So having that interaction, is something that they should be able to do, and a lot of our staff members, they have to be proficient in English to have that communication. Yes, a great deal of our families are possibly Spanish speaking, so it's desirable to have that, but it's not mandated required.
Thank you.
Any other questions, suggestions? Do I have a motion to approve the job description for the vehicle rider job?
I move to approve the job description for a vehicle rider.
I'll second that.
Okay, all in favor? Say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Yes, I'm here for a couple items.
You want to pull the chair? or-
Yes, no, I'm fine, thank you. Action B3, we have for your consideration, the recommendation to approve a new job description and title change for the secretary to the superintendent to read executive assistant to the superintendent. So the current job description of secretary to the superintendent originated over 40 years ago. So as you probably can guess, a lot of the responsibilities were very clerical in nature in 1974. So now we have the job requires for a great deal of complexity. So the complexity including interpreting policy and administrative regulations. As an example, so the revised job description would have a new title, which is executive assistant to the superintendent, and includes the complex responsibilities that that role undertakes. So in the information gathering process, we're able to see that there was a notable difference in compensation, which we're probably one of the few districts that even refer to superintendent secretary. The neighboring districts do refer to administrative assistant or executive assistant to the superintendent. But in that information gathering, we're able to see the notable difference. For example, if we look at the last step in the salary, there's a difference. Salinas City always being at the low end in compensation, and it could vary from slightly under 5,000. A district in smaller size than us still pays 5,000 more than Salinas City, and up to nearly $20,000. So we have before you tonight a revised job description with a new title and job description and compensation to included with that. Any questions?
Well, I'd like to move that we approve this executive assistant to superintendent job description. And she sure deserves it.
I'll second that motion. Thank you.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, motion passes. Thank you.
So action B4 is another job description, and now it's a new job description. It's PBIS, also known as Positive Behavior Intervention Supports, a coach job description. So as you know, in the many presentations that you've been privy to listening to, PBIS is a district-wide initiative. It's a proactive approach to dealing with behavior, and we've had the School Culture and Climate Program Manager oversee this implementation of this initiative over the past 2 years. And as data was collected, it was clear that we needed to move beyond the consultation model, because the current personnel only provided the opportunity to consult with the 13 schools that are currently implementing PBIS, because we have various levels of implementation from Tier 1, the beginning, formation of the team, identifying school-wide strategies, to Tier 2, where you have, a different level of interventions, and Tier 3, where it's at the top of the pyramid of intervention. So we should have 14 schools in the fall implementing PBIS. Therefore, the need for direct support, and a PBIS coach would do that, would provide an opportunity to meet with the PBIS and leadership teams per school site, review data, analyze data, identify trends, come up with recommendations, and just provide resources per school site. So that's what you have before you, job description. So we ask that, and this all came to fruition through the revision of the LCAP and the data that was collected by Lori Sanders and the team. It revealed the need for additional personnel. So the recommendation is approval of the PBIS coach job description. Any questions?
Well, there aren't any questions. I will, go ahead. Thank you, Stephen.
Okay.
Make a motion that we approve this recommendation.
We should be opening this up.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
We have a motion to approve the PBIS coach job description and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, motion passes 5-0. Ms. Chang?
Action B5. So this is another job description that we're requesting approval of revision, and with the revision comes additional responsibility and compensation. So as I mentioned in the previous item, we through the LCAP, we goal 2, particularly around school culture and climate, we identified and subsequently funded and created the position of school climate and culture program manager. And the responsibilities have included oversight of positive behavior interventionist supports, PBIS, restorative justice, OVAS, anti-bullying program, and PlayWorks, which is structured play to alleviate or have inclusion during recess and diminish any behavior problems during recess time. So what we're asking is for consideration of expanding responsibilities that would be some of the responsibilities formerly held by the Director of Pupil Personnel, which include policy enforcement, support of schools in the area of discipline, parent complaints, student behavior concerns, as well as monitoring suspensions and expulsion. So with the revision of the duties has come a change in title as well, a proposed change in title, which would be School Climate and Culture Administrator, which would, currently is School Climate and Culture Program Manager, which is equivalent to Vice Principal. And with the revision in job responsibilities and title, we feel we will be able to recruit somebody with, more seasoned or greater experience beyond Vice Principal, entry-level position. Any questions?
Questions?
I'll make a motion.
Okay. Trustee Kim, can you remember to open up public comment on all of these? They're action items, so just ask for public comment before you make a
Do
motion.
we have any public comment
Thank you.
on any items previously voted on? What? You did? Okay, I assume we have a motion to approve this job description. Second?
I'll second.
Okay, a motion is second to approve the job description for Administrator, School Climate and Culture. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? 5-0.
Okay, action item B6, which is another action item, and it brings before you tonight the position or the job description for Communications and Public Relations Officer. So we recognize that primary responsibility of district administration is to maintain all stakeholders informed, and this job description would indeed do that. The Communications and Public Relations Officer would report directly to the superintendent, and the responsibilities include comprehensive communication and marketing of Salinas City Elementary School District program and district major accomplishments, serve as the liaison between the district, media, and stakeholders. And other responsibilities include designing and creating content for the website and print publications. So we ask that you consider the position, the job description, approval of the position. And again, this is something that will also surface during the revision of the LCAP, and the feedback that was received indicated that there was a need for improvement in our communications with the public and our various stakeholders. Any questions?
Questions from the public?
Sure, why not?
Okay.
Frank Garden, One Child Admission. So I see we're approving 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 job descriptions. It sounds like we have the funds available to fund these. That's probably a good $350,000, $400,000 in salary and benefits. It's just a statement. It's not a question. But with respect to the Communications and Public Relations Officer job description, I've stood up here previously requesting that the school board meetings be videotaped so that we don't have to do this as a community. And I'm wondering if this particular administrator would take on that responsibility. I did hear that the administrator would add content to the website, but in terms of community engagement, I think it would add a lot of value to the school board to be very transparent in the way that the business is conducted here, since we have nothing to hide, and that this person could be a great asset to the school district in terms of promoting community involvement and parent and teacher involvement, and coming out to the school board and being active in the decisions that affect our children. So that's the only question I have. Will we get somebody to take on that responsibility, and could it possibly be this person?
Thank you. Okay, any questions to the board? Clarifications? Do I have a motion to approve this job description?
I move to approve the Communication and Public Relations Officer job
I'll
description.
second your vote on the nomination.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, motion passes.
Thank you. Thank you.
Ms. Saunders.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Good evening, Superintendent and Trustees. This is our fifth presentation on the LCAP, but we bring it to you tonight for action. And I also will remind you that this is a team effort. This is not a document that one person can put together without a lot of blood, sweat, and tears on the membership of the team, and also without the input of hundreds of stakeholders. So what we're going to do tonight, this is before you for action, but there are some of our data on the expected annual outcomes that when we've been having past presentations, the data wasn't in. And we said that we would come back to you. And so we're taking that opportunity this evening. So Mr. Dillinger is going to present some new data on Goal 1, academic achievement. I'll come back for Goal 2, school culture and climate, and then Ms. Puerta will finish up with parental and community involvement.
Well, good evening, public and board members. As you can see up here, these are the expected annual measurable outcomes on the LCAP. So we wrote the goals for the LCAP, and these were the things that we expected to see to measure our success from the LCAP, from those actions that we had. So the ones that are green, and again, we don't want to belabor them, we've talked about them already in numerous other presentations. The green ones are ones that we accomplished, that we did very well. The red ones are ones that we did not accomplish. And the black one, you can see established student baseline performance from the CASP data. We haven't gotten the final results from our end of the year testing yet. And so as soon as we have that, we'll come back in a future presentation. We'll be able to talk about that. The one that we want to talk about just for a few minutes is that one that talks about a student baseline for end of the year foundational literacy skills. You saw that the expected annual measurable outcome was to establish the student baseline for the end of the year. And so we just want to talk a little bit about our process, about some of our thoughts regarding that baseline and what we want to do to measure if students have established or gained those foundational literacy skills for the end of the year. When we're doing that, we're taking a look at two different tests, is what we've looked at in the past. One of them is called the BPST, the Basic Phonics Skills Test, as given to kindergartners, first graders, and some second graders. We even sometimes give to third graders if we suspect that there's a discrepancy in their phonics acquisition. The other test that we give is a fluency test, where students are expected to read a passage for 1 minute and have the proper pacing, expression as they're reading. Okay, so we'll take a look at both of those things right here. So right here, again, we're talking about the BPST, the Basic Phonics Skills Test. We can see in kindergarten and first grade, the two grades where it's required, the growth that has happened this year. You can see that blue line are the kindergartners. At the beginning of the year, we had 3% of the kindergartners who met the baseline or met the proficiency for the Basic Phonics Skills Test. At the end of the year, we had 71%. In the first grade, we had 17%, and at the end of the year, we had 47%. So the expectations, of course, are much higher for the first grader than for the kindergartner. But I think that shows really substantial growth for both of those. The next one that we have on here is the foundational literacy skills for the second graders. I said that some of the second graders took the basic phonics skills test. This year what we had said was if a student was passing the basic phonics skills test at the very beginning, they wouldn't be expected to, and the fluency test, they wouldn't need to take it for the rest of the year. That's why you see the number of students taking the test decreases, because as they passed it, they wouldn't need to take it again. You can see that though, that has some issues for our data. And so what we're going to require next year is that every second grader for the entire year continue to take the test, even if they had passed the test the first time. Because as we were trying to have our own benchline right now to see how successful we ran into some trouble, because not all the same students were included in the sample. But regardless, you can see the number of students still continue to increase. The other one that we talked about was the fluency test, where the students, again, they read for 1 minute, and then they're expected to read with the proper accuracy and pacing and expression. You can see that this is an area where we fell a little bit. Now, when we look at this, you need to remember that the target that the students need to hit increases throughout the year. So say at the beginning of the year, a student is expected to read 40 words per minute. But by the end of the year, they're expected to read 70 words per minute. So that target changes. So for a student like the blue line, the second grade, they went from 41 to 39. To me, that means that they maintained. They still grew, right? They still had to grow throughout the year to still maintain and hit that same target, but we weren't closing that gap. Does that make sense? Whereas for the kindergartners, or for the first graders, I'm sorry, we didn't have as many first graders keep up by the end of the year what the expectation was. So as we're talking about establishing that for the next year, this is what we're proposing. We're proposing that, again, we're still looking at the BPSD, Basic Phonics Skills Test, and the Fluency Test, that we have 70% of our kindergartners be at or above target on the kindergarten end of year BPST results. For the first grade, we want 70% of the students to be at or above target for the first grade BPST, and 60% of them fluent on meeting the basic skills on the fluency test by the end of the year. For the second grade, it's the same thing. 70% of the students at or above target for second grade BPST, and 60% on the fluency test. Ms. Ish?
So I know that that's the baseline, and then this is the end of third trimester. When you see that a student in first or second grade, because that's what you were looking at here, is not progressing the way that they should, they're not continuing to go up. Are there interventions in place, or is that, do you target those students with interventions?
Absolutely.
So would then we have to look at the interventions to say perhaps they weren't as effective as they should have been, or is it maybe the time the students spend in the, I don't know. Is that something you need to look at? Because clearly if you're intervening and it's not working, it's either the amount of time the student is spending in intervention or the intervention itself, I would assume. So is that a time you would look at whether that intervention was effective? Or
No doubt, that's definitely something that we continue to look at.
Okay.
And it's always hard when you're talking about an individual child. When an individual child improves and grows, it's not always easy to pinpoint exactly why that was, because it's a combination of a lot of things.
Right.
You have a fantastic teacher working really hard with them
Right.
every single day. That's the number one, has to happen every day. You have the great instructional aide who's in the classroom system. They go to other intervention programs. They read more with their parents at home. They participate in the after-school reading program. So there was a lot of things that we give to students. And so, but it is important to take a look at the money we're spending and the interventions that we're using to be able to see, are we getting the results that we would expect with the majority of these students.
And the other thing is, we have Footsteps to Brilliance now, and it's such, it launched later in the year, but if we could really hit it hard, because that's such a great parent, it's such an easy thing parents can do for their children. That's something we already have, but truly I would look at the interventions that are being used in the classroom and see if perhaps, our money is, that's the best intervention we can get for those kids.
Absolutely, we totally agree with that, and we spend a lot of time looking at that information. And as far as Footsteps of Brilliance, I think one of the greatest things about that is that's something we want to put an emphasis on before they ever even come to school.
Yeah.
So that they can close that 3,000 word gap that a lot of times.
I would really like to see a metric that is correlated to our assessment, our state assessment. I know these are just a portion of the standards. The foundational skills is just one little small piece of the standards. And when I see these percentages, even for second grade, I do not see a direct correlation between this and the summative state assessment for third grade. It's just a huge discrepancy. So if there's some way to include an additional measurements that are more correlated and an earlier predictor of what those are going to be like in third, fourth, fifth, and sixth grade, still embargoed, but it's very disappointing results. So I would like to see something that can give both staff and teachers greater information around that correlation to the summative assessment.
Thank you. Any more questions?
No, this is not reading comprehension. It's just word recognition and speed.
And I think that Ms. Martinez's comment kind of speaks to that as well. You're right. What we're using right now is basic phonics skills, which is very appropriate, I believe, in kindergarten for sure, and fluency as well, which is important, but we're missing other parts of it. Vocabulary development, I know that has a lot to do with fluency, but that could speak to reading comprehension. So I agree with her. We need to have a more comprehensive system that would be a better indicator of how we'll do on the CASP at the end of the year. It gives teachers real-time data they can use.
I actually used to use this tool for both, for reading comprehension and speed, but I would have to have two separate readings, so to speak, with each child, which is extremely time-consuming.
Yes, and that's what happens, especially with the fluency test. There are comprehension questions at the end of the fluency. I will just speak for myself. My experience has been that often there's a difference between reading for fluency and reading for comprehension. And when a child is reading for fluency, or even when I'm reading for fluency, I'm thinking about the performance, doing it accurately. My focus isn't always on the comprehension. So I think that a separate test would be very applicable instead of trying to ask a question about what we just read for the fluency test.
Ms. Sanders, when we're looking at goal 1, are we expecting then once our test scores are released in August that we'll come back in the fall to show progress towards this particular goal?
Yes. Another person on our team, Virginia Garza-Nunez, who is our testing and student information, she is at professional development for the student information system today for this week and with her team in Los Angeles. She has been instructed that the embargo will be lifted August 15th. If we get news that it's before August 8th, they change that, we will come to you on August 8th. Otherwise, it would be a full report on SBAC results in September.
Pertaining to goal 1.
Pertaining to goal 1.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay, I am here to talk a little bit and give you an update on goal 2, which was our school culture and climate. Again, we color-coded this. The red measurable outcomes were not met, and the green ones were. We reported on the Williams facility reports and then on PlayWorks before. So let's see what we have. The statewide goal is 97% attendance in schools, and of course we had a district-wide goal to meet that of 97%. And if a school was at 97, to have a 1% increase over the previous year, or if it was less, at least 1% to get them there. So what we see is that we did grow. We have something to celebrate. It wasn't 1% district-wide, but it was 3/4, 0.76. And this shows you site by site where we were. You can see that in 2014, none of the schools were at 97%. In 15-16, we now have Los Padres and Sherwood that are 97%, and then an additional 4 schools that met that 1% increase. Veranda Meadows by 2%, Hammond 1.5%, and then Monterey Park over 1%, and University Park over 1%. So there is some very, very good news there. So, yes.
I just want to point out that the data there is a little bit misleading because so much of the improvement is from the
ARC. Right.
So I mean, it doesn't show you per se the daily attendance. So we can't really see if the actual Monday through Friday attendance improved with this data.
What's the ARC?
The ARC is the attendance recovery program that we put in. And if you look at the color coding there, you can see that the yellow schools are the academic attendance recovery coordinated program that run the Saturday schools. So those schools participated. This is, again, reporting on the ADA.
What is this? Just for my information. Attendance meaning, it's not 97% of the days the kids were there, but it's 97% either there or excused, right? It's 97% there? Wow.
It's there, no excuses anymore.
Is that right?
Right, but
Even
it's,
sick kids and all that, we still are up there at 96%?
Yes.
That's pretty solid.
Yeah, so again, we had a very ambitious goal and we definitely we made some good progress. It's something that our schools are watching and they are working towards. Okay? Now, the next goal we had was that we would see a 10% reduction in suspensions. And we very much did.
Can I go back to the previous one?
Sure.
How do you convey to the site, starting from the top, about the importance of the ADA, the importance of an increase in school attendance? You could give me like an example. How's it conveyed from district to site principal, to teacher, parents, and so on?
Well, I can speak that every month, our site administrators receive an attendance report. And I know in our LCAP parent meetings, when we did our stakeholder input, we did have parents report that they wish they had more information from about their own particular sites, that they felt that that should be something that is routinely included in on the school website, for example, or in a school newsletter, and we have passed that information on, and that is something that our parents want to be informed about.
I've seen a few principals actually posted on their marquee. I've seen it in the newsletters, and certainly we saw it alive and well at Sherwood. They made that a school-wide effort, and they had, I don't know if they were quarterly or trimesters, I guess trimesters, that you awarded all the attendance awards where they gave medals to kids who had the perfect attendance and trophies to kids who had, and then they had a big end of the year party celebration for attendance. And so principals, I think, are very, very much aware of trying to meet that attendance goal. Whether they publicize it, I don't know. I've seen it in a few newsletters, meaning newsletters that are going out to parents. I can't say I've seen it in every one.
Yeah. You know, I wasn't so much referring to publicizing it, but making sure that the community understands the importance
of attendance.
Because good attendance also speaks to good academic performance. And, you know, even like, for example, in our back-to-school nights or open house that we have in the fall, this could be conveyed by every teacher, the parents, you know, all these situations to just make this a lot better.
No, you're absolutely right, and it is something I know as a teacher and as a principal that's routinely discussed at parent conferences. If attendance is specifically of concern. And it is something that annually is on agendas and parent presentations, DLAC or ELACs, school site councils, that they talk about the importance and the impact of regular attendance to student achievement, connectedness, life success.
And then Lori, I'm just assuming that the homeschool coordinators that are at different school sites are probably in close contact with families whose children have high absenteeism. Because I thought that was part of their job.
Right, and to that end, it is one of the reasons, right now, the parent coordinator position has been site funded, but we have increased and included this year in our LCAP a 3-hour parent coordinator position at all schools to make sure that that's one of the things that.
And that'll be a big focus for them too.
One of, yeah.
Yeah.
Can I ask
Mr. Ramos?
one thing? What happens is a lot of the times it's just repeat offenders that aren't showing up. So that's when you have parent coordinators or you have vice principal calling home. It's usually it's a small group that are the ones that are constantly missing. That's what brings it a little bit down. It's not a school-wide, everyone's asking. It's a small group, and that's who we need to reach. That's who we do reach out to.
Do we take it to the step where it goes to the district attorney, or it does? Okay.
Yes, we do.
Okay.
We do have a truancy abatement program through the district attorney, and that has been handled mostly by the administrator who attends those meetings with the district attorney and the parent and the student. And if necessary, if there's no improvement, it can go to court.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, suspension data. Again, our goal was a 10% reduction. And you can see that what we have here is a decrease of 118, which is 17%. So that was something that we did readily meet last year. One of the other goals that we had was increasing school connectedness. And the measure, we had only indicated one measure. And we definitely need to add additional measures, and that will be what we propose for our expected annual outcomes for next year. That we will use the CHICS, which is the California Healthy Kids Survey, and other measures to find some key indicators of increasing school connectedness. This does not include, our goal was that everything, all the areas of school connectedness, meaningful participation, caring adult relationships, feeling safe at school, and high expectations, students' perception that the adults had high expectations, they would all increase by 5%. As you can see, we had most actually decreased. We do have a larger number of students participating in this survey, especially in 5th grade, with a bump of 317 students. This is something that we received the results late in the spring, and the results did go out. They're disaggregated by school site, and they did go out to the sites. And sites need to take a look at them and see how they can address these issues.
Yeah, it's not a question as much as it is just sort of an observation.
Mm-hmm.
Because if your suspensions have gone down dramatically,
Right.
and then your school connectedness and children feeling safe and has gone down as well, could that, I mean, are you keeping kids in school that are causing other kids to not feel safe? Because we've had such a huge focus on, PBIS, but could it be that maybe by keeping kids, by trying to help the kids that are causing a lot of the problems, that it's actually causing more of the kids to feel unsafe? I don't know. It's just an observation, because it just seems interesting that you would have such a huge decrease in suspensions, and yet so many kids who aren't feeling safe.
But that's a great observation. There's multiple things to look at, though. If we look at our Playworks implementation data, showing that the pro-social play is effectively happening at the sites, that our office discipline referrals from recess are decreasing, which we assume is directly related to that, and the fact that we have 7 schools now that through restorative justice have peer mediators on the playground. We know through other programs, we have lots of good indicators that student safety has increased, but not on this survey. And so some of us, we also want to take a look at how is this test administered. It is something, not test, but survey is administered. It's done online. We don't know the controls around the administration. We don't know. We need to take a look at how this is introduced to students. Do they understand the importance of it? And that the fact that they are honestly and truthfully responding to the questions is important to us.
Yeah, I just think if the overall climate at the school was positive because of all the great things that are happening, that the kids themselves would also respond. They'd buy in, so they'd be responding. I mean, that would be the natural, progression of what you would think would happen next. So if it's not, then I think there's something else going on. And I think we're doing such great things in the schools that I just wonder if we ought to look at other things, that might influence why kids are responding. And you're right, it could just be the way they're answering it. It could be the time of the day they took it. You just never know. But
well, and like I said, we just really need to identify the other measures. That this is one measure, and we need to look at it. We need to take it seriously, and at a site level, and see how our students responded to it, and also at a district level.
Yeah, because the other thing is usually 6th graders are the ones that are most apathetic, and they're the ones that are the cockiest, and they're going to do crazy things. And yet, in this survey, they were the ones that had the least drop in their attitude. So, I don't know. In 6th grade, in school connectedness, it was only a 3%, and in meaningful participation, it was only a 1%. Caring adult relationships, it was 0%. So I'm thinking, that maybe it wasn't so much attitude, because if you're going to get attitude from anybody, I would think you would get it from a 6th grader. So, I don't know, Lori. I just know that they're doing such great things in schools that, with all the programs and stuff, that it has to be maybe something else. And I noticed the suspension thing going down, so I thought maybe that has something to do with it.
My curiosity point is around those 317 students that were new to the survey and where those students were. Did we miss a school? Because I've done this survey for over 10 years. And historically, in many districts, one school didn't get it to a certain grade level. Did that skew the scores of that? Because to me, the greatest difference is around the 5th grade students.
Yeah.
And almost doubling, well, more than doubling, I guess, the amount of students that you tested. So how reliable is that data point at 5th grade is be my question. So I would like to know where those 317 students miraculously appeared to take Richard's data.
Or what they did with the 62, maybe they were the ones that
So, questions about the data point, I guess, is a lot. Okay.
Okay.
I think you've got somebody behind you.
I'll defer to you.
So, yeah, Oscar Holmes, CPC. I was looking at this and I kept looking and it's a little confusing. So I guess looking at different measures would be great because I don't know how many schools are doing Old but we do surveys and it conflicts with this. It's the opposite. Kids are feeling more safe. They feel they can talk to more students about just opening students, other students of different grades, teachers, supervisors. So maybe looking at other surveys as well, because it's a little strange to see negative numbers when ours were at Sherwood and we're doing all this. They're clients.
That's good to hear.
Something wrong with chicks.
Yeah.
Yes, I would say, I think, I think these results should really be considered and look at what are the differences at school sites and extract a little bit more, just like that. So I'm actually happy that Oveus is coming to Mission Park from my understanding next year. But the 317 kids in 5th grade, to bring up the sample size to 572, well, that would actually make that sample size statistically stronger. So the increased number of students participating is actually takes away some of the variance of error whenever you sample a population. So the stronger the numbers you have, that is typically what goes on in statistics. Anecdotally, what I can tell you is just from my, I'll tell a story about my son. He's very empathetic. At a young age, I think he saw some kids being bullied when we were playing t-ball, and there was a little 4-year-old kid, and he came over to tell me, and I said, "Oh my Lord, you let the 4-year-old kid?" No, I told him to go with Dad first. So he'd already, I think he'd been learning some things from the school as well. But last year he told me a story, and I think it's related to some of these school safetiness. Just because districts across California and across the nation actually have reductions in suspensions. It's kind of been a mandate through the federal government down. You will reduce suspensions. The question is not whether suspensions have been reduced, it's the programs to address the serious behaviors and sometimes emotional problems. So I'm very happy to see the programs. I went to Veranda Meadows and heard about the restorative justice. And when my son gave me a story about some kid who's just always kind of really aggressive and fights and hits, and I think I said something, well, what, do you intervene or do you do anything? And he said, no, I'm not going to do that anymore. I've just seen him clobber kids. So he's learned the opposite message. He's now, I would probably say he's probably got a less, his would be a little more negative, even though I think he's learned a lot of those skills. He's learned that, hey, you know what? Playing by the rules and what they tell you, there's not always follow-up. So I'm looking forward to have Oveus, but I would not discount negative data. Just because you have negative data does not mean it's not good. It tells you something. So look in deeper and find out where there might be some differences with schools like Sherwood that really has positive effects because of the programs they have, but don't discount what these kids are saying. This is their perception, and that's important. Thank you.
Regarding the giving this survey out to the kids, you're not allowed to. It's online now. Pamela Connor, Rhonda Meadows. It's online. You get a permission slip. You put them down at the computers, maybe in the computer lab. They have to do all of the reading of every question on their own. So giving it to my 4th graders, it's written at least a 4th grade reading level. Many of them can't read any of the questions. And when they ask for help, you're not even supposed to really look over their shoulder because they're supposed to have privacy in filling it out, and they can't read it. And so there's a lot of just random clicking through the survey. It would be a lot more accurate if we were allowed to have them